Good morning.
Good morning. Marie,
Yep.
how are you this morning?
Good, good.
And Karen, how are you this morning?
I can't find my,
And Patrick, how are you this morning?
I'm good, Bernie. How are you?
Good. I sent out something this morning, maybe about 10 o'clock, but it bounced back for you, Patrick. It was just, so if you allow me to have your email address, I'll send it to you right now again.
Okay, it's PMACARCHUK@westchesterda.net.
Okay, PMACARCHUK@westchesterda.net. That's what I sent, and that's what bounced back. I'll send it again.
Okay, I'll take a look for it. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
hi, Janice.
Good morning,
morning.
Janice.
Good morning, everyone.
So we're still waiting for
Bernie,
Merlene?
I think everybody is on.
Okay.
This is Karen.
Marlene isn't
Oh,
on
yes,
yet.
you're correct. Marlene is not on. My apologies.
Want to give her a minute or so, see if she makes it?
Sure.
So in the meantime, Janice, I hopefully I responded to your email that I received this morning.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you received that.
Let me check. Hold on. Yes, I see it. Yes.
Okay. So being that we're waiting for Merlene to get on, Janice, I think that you had sent us a document today that you wanted us to consider. Is that what you see we should have as in part of the agenda, or is there?
I thought we would give it some discussion. I thought there would be some good recommendations to include in our report. I thought we would go over them to see what
Okay.
other.
Does anyone else have anything to add in terms of agenda? Because we can cover the document that Janice has sent.
I'm seeing Marie sent something. Marie sent, Marie.
Yeah, what she sent, I think, says she
Said
couldn't.
she couldn't print it out.
She couldn't
Okay.
punch it out.
Okay.
No, I did print it out. I got it, so
Oh, okay.
disregard.
Okay.
Richard, do you have that document, or is there anything else you feel we should have in the have on the agenda first off?
Well, we might want to, I'm not sure that we looked, or I think maybe we talked briefly about, but there's an unbiased policing policy, which we might want to look at again. You remember that this was, the White Plains Police Department has such a policy.
Yes.
And, I don't know that we looked at it carefully, but when I looked at it, I recommended that, it's got, part of it says that officers are encouraged to report incidents that they witness of biased policing. And, I think that should be mandatory. So, I mean, I think it's an important recommendation that we should make about a specific policy.
That was one of the recommendations that
Yeah, I think that's,
Janice sent.
it's definitely something we should recommend. It definitely
Yeah,
should be.
yeah, so-
If we didn't already have it in there, we should definitely consider putting it in there.
Yeah, I mean, we had,
So
there's
here,
the
they,
general, in
so
the general
Janice, yeah.
policies, in the general policies, it has things like that, but I'm just saying that I think it's also helpful for us to make specific recommendations for policies that we think should be amended that have problems, because the general issue of, sending over, these ideas is that implementing them is the big issue. Because somebody's going to, it has to be, made part of a policy. So somebody has to take those general recommendations and write them into a specific rule for the White Plains Police Department, which is fine, but it ain't going to be us. On the other hand, there are some specific things that we think are actually wrong with the White Plains Police Department policies that we can seek to have amended right now, because, as far as the other stuff is concerned, the problem I have with it is that, like, well, somebody is going to have to take those general policies and figure out a way to write them into, actual policies that are followed by the police department.
Right. Maybe Karen can help us with that. Karen, once we make these recommendations, and let's assume that they adopt the recommendations, who then puts them into the book?
I can write them up, but I need something from this subcommittee that goes through, that details all of your recommendations. Marlene is just joining now.
Great.
So I need, because there's been many, many conversations, I need some kind of document that summarizes or outlines all of it. And then I can put it together.
So let me ask the question. Originally, I put together a form that we'd be able to put our comments into that pointed specifically to a policy or procedure and the page and the comment that we were making and the change that we recommended and a comment to that. Would that be what you would need in order to help you put that together?
Are you referring, Bernie, to the presentation that you shared with the full committee last week?
No, I'm talking about the form that I created before the presentation last week.
The form that we were using at the meeting at the city hall that you were
Yes.
typing into, Karen?
Yes, yes. That would be fine, because all the other committees, as you know, are also using that form. So putting it into that form provides definitely a level of consistency.
Good. So I think that we have identified points and specific recommendations to policies, and anyone jump in to tell me if you think that I'm incorrect, that we can put into that form so that you have that in order to look consistently at the recommendations that we are making.
I mean, can you share with us, Karen, the work product that you were working on at that meeting? And maybe we can edit it.
Right, I can. I've started to edit it a little bit. So actually, if you guys bear with me, I could, and if this is. the
So
direction
just let me ask the
take it-
question before you guys move on. I just asked the question, if we should use that form that was created in order to help us uh, um, put our recommendations into some format that you could use. Are we saying that we're not going to use that, or we're going to use that? Because I think we are now asking if, Karen, you've created something different in order to make that happen. So I just want
No,
to be clear
no,
as to.
I think Richard I was working off of that form when we met
Okay.
in person.
Okay.
Richard is referring to that form, I
All
believe.
right. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Okay.
Oh, you were
So-
virtual, so you didn't actually see it, but she was
Right,
working on,
right. So
Yeah.
that
Karen
was-
was working on that form that day.
Oh, okay.
All right, so if you
Thank you.
all just bear with me, and Merlene has joined the meeting, but if you bear with me, I'll try to find it and pull it up and share my screen.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I got something from Janice this morning. Who prepared this?
I took those bullets from the National Black Association of Police Officers.
Oh, you kind of
I just took what I-
copied and pasted them from the other
Yeah, yeah,
document. Okay,
yeah.
I see.
Yes. So, and I did that from the National Black Police Association. From there, they had a guidelines out, and the one that I did before that, I took from Campaign Zero. So now,
Right. That's good.
Mhm. Did you get a chance to look at them?
Yeah, well, a little bit.
Okay.
You know, some of these things are going to be difficult to put into effect because, you know, some of them are aspirational.
Right.
Establish a culture of transparency and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a good goal, but you know,
yeah. I see what you're saying. I mean, it like you said, it's aspirational, but it's a goal.
Yeah.
You know, some of these are goals. Some of these are not going to be able to happen right away. You know.
I mean, guardian mindset. You know, I mean, trying to change the police officers is going to be a long-term
Yeah,
process.
that
Definitely.
starts with training. It starts with training.
Yeah.
You know, and training in the cultural of the community and anti-bias training and yeah.
Okay. So this is the form. Can everybody see this?
Right.
Yes.
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 So I think I was actually using what I had started to create during our in-person meeting, and then supplementing that with Bernie's PowerPoint presentation to the full committee this past week. So for example, because there were like 6 or 7 recommendations with regard to body cameras, I tried to kind of condense that, and you'll see what I put. But again, you guys need to tell me if you think that this is the direction that you want to go in.
My only question is, and Karen, you need to help me understand. So when the Common Council gets this, as I think Janice had asked, who is physically going to look at, uh, what do you think the process is that they'll go through? Do they just look at this and then try to look at the policy to see where our recommendations match up or don't match with the policy? Or how would they use this to make their determination that changes should be made?
Well, the council will receive a final report, right? And the final report is going to include recommendations from all of the subcommittees. And, you know, whether we haven't decided yet, Janice and I, what kind of form the final report will take. We could potentially decide to drop these recommendations forms right into the report. Or we could take the text within these recommendation forms and, you know, and just put them into the body of the document so that the format looks a little different than this chart, but essentially the same information is being conveyed. So I think, you know, for each council member, it's going to be a little bit different. I cannot speak to, you know, what each one of them will do in terms of going back and referencing, reading through specific policies. You'll have to ask, you know,
Okay, can I make a comment here?
Mhm.
I like the way that this is set out, like chart-like. Because I think it's more likely that council members who maybe are not familiar with all the stuff that we've been doing, you know, can look at it and actually the stuff will jump out as opposed to having to read through all kinds of, you know, pros and getting to a recommendation. So
I
I
agree. I
like
mean, there's
this.
something about the chart that's very readable. I
Yes.
agree. Yes.
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 Well,
Well, okay, go ahead.
so these recommendations that that I've come up with that we haven't discussed yet. So if I were to take each one and put them on this form, I would not necessarily have a comment for each one. It would be just recommendations. And
That's fine, I think.
do
I
you
don't think
do
we need
you
to have comments for every single one.
right? I'm just thinking that I can go through this and put them on this form. But issue, I don't know what would I put something in issue or
I think that the issue column is important actually, because it, you know, what is the issue that the subcommittee was discussing, right? What's the general issue, and then what's their recommendation?
okay, so I should keep the ones that are for excessive force all together.
Hmm.
And then the reference would be campaign zero or
Right, you could say
whatever,
something like that.
or whatever, and then the recommendation.
Right.
Okay.
And Karen, can we attach, I mean, this would be a good outline, but then can we attach supporting documentation?
Absolutely. I don't see why not. We can have appendices and we can, you know, reference C
Okay.
Appendix A, and then in that we can attach additional information, whether that's, you know, a particular study or
Mhm.
more detail that you want to include. Absolutely. But I think that I'd like to be able to, in the final document, keep the recommendations to kind of a very readable format. And then if, you know, depending on the recommendation, if there's a need for additional detail, include that in the appendix.
Okay, I think that sounds good.
But what I tried to do, because Marie, you did the write-up on body worn cameras, I tried to take your page, you know, and kind of distill it. But again, I have no pride of authorship here, so
That's okay.
If I didn't convey it accurately or comprehensively enough, then please let me know.
No, look, I think they're all, I mean, look, we're all the authors of all this, but like, for instance, you know, the comment here, this is a recent study on the use of body cameras, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I think that it would be a good idea to take that article and attach it in one of the appendices.
Sure.
Could it be reference document, and that you point to in that column for reference document, see article at such and such attached documents, or
Yeah.
the appendix that you have. Yeah, it would fit in there in that way. And with that, I could see all of the stuff that Janet had provided this morning actually fitting into this, because then it then makes sense as to how that could be incorporated as something that we have discussed and something that we want to be considered.
Yeah,
So could you share with us, you know, a Word version of this document that we could maybe edit?
Sure. Absolutely.
Because we may have some stuff that we didn't get. I think we have stuff that we didn't get to.
I
you
didn't
know.
Complete. Yeah, you didn't complete
I didn't
everything.
complete it either.
Yes.
Okay, well, we need to work on it, I guess.
And
Yeah.
you,
For example, like field stops, I was typing very quickly during our in-person meeting,
Sure.
and I am really uncertain that I got all of these citations correct. But even if I did, to me, that's the kind of thing we might list out in an appendix, and for the
Right.
recommendation, try to make it kind of summarize it.
Yeah, it seems to me that as helpful as this template is, we're going to have, for at least some of these policies, something written out, you know, and, you know, dealing with it so that, you know, there's references and an explanation, because it's very difficult to put all the comments and, you know, all the reasons why these things are necessary.
Okay. I will send this to you. I'll clean it up a little bit and send it to you. after
and then
this
another
meeting.
thing, I mean, the Common Council is gonna look at this, but I assume that they're not going to have access to, like, say, the police manual. So when they look at, you know, policy 14-02, are they gonna really know what that is?
Yeah,
Unless
they have to have it. If we're making recommendations, they definitely have to have it.
Well, these policies are online. I mean, you know, so we have added them online,
Okay,
police reform committee page.
I,
So,
I, I presume that that anything that we cite here in terms of recommendation, that the Common Council will refer back to the police department and even ask them as to what their opinion as to this particular policy may be. And as Janet, as you've used the term before, that's where pushback will come. But definitely, I presume that anything that we have down here, they would have to consider in totality and look back at the policy to reference exactly what we're talking about.
okay, because it seems to me there's two things that we're trying to do here. I mean, there's the one report, the entire, that encompasses everything that all of the subcommittees have recommended, and then there's this police manual that we want rewritten. So to me, there are two things that we that have to be, that we have to come up with.
Could you further explain that?
Well, there's going to be the overall report that Karen or whoever is going to present to the Common Council. But then there's also going to be this
the
the
detail.
policies and procedures manual that we want to have amended and modified in various ways. And that to me is a separate report. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it's going to be
Karen.
part of the general report, right? But ours is just going to be maybe a little bit more detailed.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
So maybe, you know, when we're going through this outline, I guess we could try to make, you know, more specific references to the policies and procedures.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, and maybe attach a copy of it to the, you know, final report.
The policy itself,
Yeah, the present policy, so that, you know, people reading it will have, you know, could be in one of the appendices. And, you know, attached here too is the policies and procedures, and we've made these, you know, recommendations to amend or modify them in such and such ways.
I agree.
Right, I mean, as I said, they're available online, but we could certainly attach copies for ease of reading.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we're on the right track.
I believe that it looks good.
So can we talk a little bit about the unbiased policing?
Yeah, we never got that far.
Sure.
Well, I think it's one of the most important policies because after all, it's one of the main reasons that we have this mandate in the first place. So this policy, if you have it available, was enacted in, I think, September of 2017. And, you know, it says its purpose is to emphasize the commitment of the White Plains Police Department to unbiased, equitable treatment of all persons. All members of this department shall follow the guidelines set forth in this procedure. So, okay, that's fine. And then it defines biased policing, fair and impartial treatment, individual demographics, police services, racial profiling. And you know, it calls for fair and impartial treatment. Biased policing is prohibited in both enforcement of the law and delivery of police services. This includes the act of racial profiling. So that's okay. I might not have worded it quite that way, but my concern is compliance. Okay, so it's this policy has purpose, policy, definitions, and procedures is Roman numeral 4. And under compliance, it has sub 1. This is on page 2, I think. It says, officers who witness or who are aware of instances of bias policing shall report the incident to a supervisor. Also, where appropriate, officers are encouraged to intervene at the time the biased police incident occurs. So why are they not required to intervene at the time the biased? I mean, you know, it says where appropriate, that's already a qualification, but why are they not required to intervene? So that's B1 under Roman numeral 4.
We did discuss this because I have notes in the margin.
Okay, but I don't think did we come up with recommendations?
Well, the recommendations were that where officers are mandated to intervene if they see any bias policing.
Okay,
And any, down in number 4, the Office of Professional Standards shall maintain data. I mean, I also, that all of this stuff, all the compliance should all be documented somewhere.
yeah, so, you know, the other thing that I wanted to bring up looking at this carefully is it says, depending on the nature and seriousness of the incident, this is 2, supervisors will provide the officers with intervening such as training and counseling. So, you know, we have a policy that says biased policing is prohibited, but if somebody engages in it, who's a police officer engages in it, we should give them training and counseling. In other words, this policy is saying that those people should not be disciplined. They should be counseled. They should go to counseling. And, you know, to me, this is, upsetting, like, so if you engage in racist behavior, and then it says you get training and counseling, and then it says external complaints and internal complaints that cannot be resolved effectively and appropriately by supervisory procedure. This is 3. Or are determined to be potentially serious in nature. So all these are wiggle words that, it means that, this one, it's a matter of somebody's judgment. The cops decide whether this is serious, shall be forwarded to the chief of police. Now, notably, they're not forwarded to internal affairs, which is the Office of Professional Standards for potential discipline. It just says, if somebody in the world determines that these things are potentially serious. And so let's go back for a minute. Somebody engages in racist behavior, but it's not serious. What? I don't get it. So it just seems to me that somebody, and they're not saying who, determines whether something is potentially serious, is not even forwarded to Office of Professional Standards, but is forwarded to the chief of police. And then it says, the Office of Professional Standards, this is 4, shall maintain data relating to complaints of bias policing. Well, how are they going to get that data?
Richard?
And then it says, yeah.
Yeah, just a second. The Office of Professional Standards, as it has been cited and into my query to the chief, is the chief of police actually manages the Office of Professional Standards. So I think that's that. Although it's a black box when it's identified, it's the chief of police who actually manages all issues that are of or for the Office of Professional Standards is managed and processed by the chief of police as it stands now.
Well, this says information shall be provided to the chief of police. In other words, it says the Office of Professional Standards maintains data, and then that data shall be provided to the chief of police. So it's making it seem separate.
You're absolutely right, and I agree with you 100%. It's one of the things that I point out for complaint policy. It exists for the same thing. This Office of Professional Standards has a nebulous, it's a black box that we really don't understand whether it comes before the chief of police, whether he sits on top of it, or whether it comes after him. It needs to be more clear, more clearly defined, but I agree with you there.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at here is, it just seems to me that if there are complaints of biased policing, why aren't they all forwarded to Professional Standards and the chief of police? Because it's got in here, well, they get training and counseling, maybe they need a hug. And then it says, if they can't be resolved by supervisory personnel, which sounds like, they say, hey, cut it out. Then, and then someone determines if it's serious, and then that, who knows, decides whether to forward it to the chief of police. It just seems to me like that there are all kinds of opportunities for incidents of biased policing which violate the policy, okay, not to be reported to IAB or Office of Professional Standards and the chief of police. I mean, there's all kinds of safety valves written into this thing that avoid any reporting of this to police brass.
But that could be one of our recommendations for that policy to be rewritten.
Perhaps you want to put down some questions for the police department, for Chief Costelli, Captain Spencer to answer if you're unclear on
Oh, no, we're very
these
clear.
policies.
We're very clear. These policies are written to give the police all kinds of safety valves that they don't have to report it to the chief of police and the Office of Professional Standards. That's why it's written this way. Because it says right in here that, you know, if it can't be determined, if it's determined to be sufficiently serious, potentially serious in nature, well, it doesn't say who determines that.
So
Okay?
a sergeant could get this complaint of biased policing and make the determination all in himself, or not even a sergeant, a supervisor, which may not even be a sergeant, could get the complaint and make the determination that this need not go any further.
Right. I gave him a talking to. I said, hey.
So what should our recommendation be? How do we change this to make it okay with us?
Well, it falls in line for me that in everything that I've been talking about, that there needs to be a process by which all complaints are administered in a formal way and documented, and that they go through the same process, which is that it just doesn't get submitted by a sergeant or a senior officer, that all complaints have to be administered in the same way, that they are documented and they follow the same process, which is to be, whatever way they come into the department, that they must appear in front of the Office of Professional Standards, i.e. administered by the Chief of Police.
Yeah.
And that it's not only that they get, what was the terms that they use, Richard, that they will be, go through training or.
Training and counseling.
So it needs to be further than that, training, counseling, and disciplinary action.
Right.
Training, counseling, and termination.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a disciplinary action could go all the way from a censure to, removal.
Termination. Yeah.
That would
I think it's
on
really
the
important. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the seriousness and so forth.
of incident.
Right. We don't know exactly what it's going to be.
Mhm.
We can imagine a range of biased policing, but if we start from the premise that the policy says that unbiased policing is the policy and violations are not permitted, then okay, that if somebody's engages in conduct which is in violation of a policy, we want to say that if there's a report of that, should be made to professional standards and the chief of police, and that a database of this be maintained so that it doesn't get swept under the rug. This is what we should be recommending, I think.
I agree.
Yes, that's with all complaints need to go through the same process and need to be points of data that are at all times considered by the Office of Professional Standards, i.e., which I believe it is the Chief of Police.
Yeah.
Well, who wants to write this up?
Okay, I'll write it up.
And I sent out to everyone this morning the electronic complaint process that needs to be. It's a procedure that needs to be in place in order to support this policy position. So did everyone receive that? And you may not have had an opportunity to look at it, but it's something that it's what I had reported during our presentation.
Right. I see it. And I guess we've been talking about a civilian complaint review board, but we really haven't made any concrete recommendations of how that would work.
I,
Maybe we should.
Yeah, but I think that this process comes before the review board itself. This has to be there so that the review board can have something to look at, some data point to look at. And this provides that process to take place so that there is that accountability electronically for the data that gets created from this. So it's not just that someone comes into the police station and then goes to a desk sergeant and says, I have a complaint. And the sergeant then, or the senior person then makes a decision as to whether or not that complaint is of value. It doesn't matter who, when, or where that complaint is made or how it is made. It is documented and followed up on, and also becomes a data point for the Department of Professional Standards and the Chief of Police.
Well, who's going to maintain this, this, whatever you want to call it, site?
Well, at the present time, the data is maintained by the police department. It becomes a process that the police department has to maintain.
I'm not sure, but I think the accountability committee was working on something like, not exactly like this, but the accountability part of how complaints were handled.
And
I have
they
to
may
check.
have. I don't think, however, that they've gone through it as point by point in the way that I had put it down from my conversations with them. And even if they have, I don't think that we should not include it. If it repeats itself, then it just repeats itself again. But I do think that from my conversations with everyone, there is no point by point documentation as to how the flow of that information gets accounted for. And once again, this is a very high level. There's a lot of other things that need to go into the electronic complaint process, but this is a high level presentation as to how that process should begin and how it should be handled in general.
Well, what policy would this come under? Would you
This comes
think?
under currently the personnel complaint policy,
Okay,
which exists according to the chief of police, is how they handle complaints.
okay.
But this is a procedure and not a policy. This is the procedure that is to accompany the policy, the current personnel complaint policy, which I believe is not what's necessary. I think we need a complaint policy, not a personnel complaint policy.
Well, they're two different things.
Yes, they are. But currently there is no specific, let's say, civilian complaint policy. There's a personnel complaint policy. Because in effect, not all complaints may be about a particular person. A complaint may be about a departmental activity, and individuals, civilians or groups of civilians should be able to make those complaints directly also. But that is not accounted for within the current personnel complaint policy. Totally misses that.
So can we agree on the topics that we're going to cover? Each policy and/or procedure? Because
Well, I think
kind
we
of
had a
like,
bunch of them in our presentation, right?
no, I
think
know, but I think we need to kind of pin it down better so that we could put it in the outline that we want to come up with.
Well, in what way? I thought that we actually have all of those. We were given 7 or 8 policies to review. I think that we've gone, correct me if I'm wrong, through all of those policies in detail as we possibly could. We have bullet points specifically to each of those policies in existence. We also have a an additional procedural document, which I'm talking about now, which speaks of the complaint process, and that we'd like to have that added. So I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that we have the information that we need. We just
So
went through
this is right.
yeah.
So Bernie, what you sent out a while back was it was like a little booklet that said White Plains Police Reform, and it had colors on it. Is that what you're talking about? Like I printed it out, and the cover was, you put some of it in color. And the policies and procedures that we reviewed were 1, field stops, 2, response to resistance. Is this what you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
and there were essentially 8 of those
There
that
were
we had
8,
gone through, I
right.
believe, right?
And then underneath it, you put to be determined, persons in crisis, domestic incidents, threat assessment, and cell block procedures.
Yeah, those were additional policies that we received, but we haven't gone through in detail.
Okay.
And
Do
I
we
thought that
want
at this
to?
time,
Do we want to do that, or are we gonna leave them as is?
I leave that up to the group to decide if we wanted to go through. I thought the 8 that we went through, the 8
So that
main
would make,
policies that we
right,
had.
that would make 12 altogether that we could put on the outline. So we didn't talk about any of this stuff on the bottom.
So I think that maybe we should not include those because we have not covered those. But I need to hear from everybody as to what you think. Merlene? Janice? What are your,
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
I guess at this point, we should just focus on the ones that we already have done. I guess. I mean,
Right,
That
but then
makes-
we're not gonna have the opportunity to add anything once it's done.
well, I
Well,
guess, you know,
yes, Janice?
I mean, has anybody had an opportunity to read over them? Is there anything that stands out that we might want to just go ahead and make a recommendation on?
I mean, I think we read through these in the beginning, but we never really did discuss them.
Did anybody see anything that stands out to them? I didn't look at them yet. I don't even see them in my pile of papers.
I have not gone through them in any kind of detail. I just kind of glossed over them. But I thought we were focusing on those 8 that we have covered in such detail that we've gone over and over and over them again. So I in effect would say that we not cover them, but we need to hear from everybody else in the group.
Well,
Richard?
I think the persons in crisis, I think that's probably covered by, we have a committee that, or a subcommittee that's dealing with like mental health issues, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay. So that would probably cover persons in crisis. I don't know about the other issues, the other subjects, whether they would be covered by other subcommittees or not.
Yeah, I don't even remember why we received those additional policies. I forgot exactly why they were handed to us. But they came after we received the first group of policies.
Oh, okay.
Marlene, any
Yes.
comments?
I'm okay with moving forward with what we have. I'll personally, just for myself, look over those policies, but I'm not 100% sure if I have.
I don't think I have them. I'm looking through my papers.
Yeah.
I don't see them.
I'm looking through my emails right now, and I don't think I'll have it, but I'll check the other email addresses to be.
So why don't we vote on it that we're gonna stick with the 8 and let another group or So we just concentrate
So
on those
my-
8 that we have.
My only concern is like, for instance, the cell block policy. I don't think another group would have that. I understand for the persons in crisis that another group would have that policy, but what other group would have the cell block policy?
Nobody.
But the cell block would, I mean, that kind of was, we discussed some of that, like under strip searches, if I,
Yeah, there's a strip search policy we talked about. I mean, that should be
So there's-
included in our group, right?
Yeah, but so outside of the strip search policy, there's nothing else in the cell block policy that's different? Because I don't have that. I'm looking through and I don't have these.
Well, I think we have it. Do you want me to send it to you?
Yes, please.
yeah, I think we have it somewhere. I don't-
Okay. I'm
Merlin,
gonna,
what email address did you tell us to use? I'm sorry.
Slater Center, right?
Marlene at slatercenter.org. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
I got it.
Did I send you something this morning, or did I send it to the wrong
Yes.
email?
Nope,
You
I
got it?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm gonna send that to you right now, Marlene. Does anybody
Thank
else
you.
want a copy?
You can send me a copy, please.
No, I have it.
I have
Cell
it.
block
It's
procedures.
PR 48, actually.
Okay, Janice wants a
Right,
copy?
procedures
Yes,
number
sure.
48.
Because I don't see
You
I'm
want
not-
it at your Gmail?
either one. I'll check both of them.
Okay, I'm sending it to you right
All
now.
right. Thank you.
There's
So
actually
Janet-
there's a lot of stuff under here, believe it or not.
So Janice, is this, are we at the point where we need to just sum up and then have stuff to present now? Or do we want to take some more time to go through these other 3 policies? Your direction. My recommendation is that we use the 8 that we have covered so far. If we have additional time later, that we go over those additional 3, but I think that,
Well, like Marlene said, I'll skim through it. If anything pops out at me that, isn't, doesn't look right, I'll bring it up to the group, but, I'll look at it.
What are the 8 policies, just so that we know what we're talking about?
Marie, can you read through those?
Yeah, let me grab that one. Okay. Okay, number 1, field stops. Number 2, response to resistance. Number 3, unbiased policing. 4, video recording of interrogations. 5, body worn camera systems. 6, firearms. 7, personnel complaints. 8, strip search and body cavity searches policy. And then underneath that, Bernie, you put to be determined. The things that we did not discuss were persons in crisis, 2, domestic incident lethality assessment, 3, assessment, and 4, cell block procedures.
I think
Yeah,
I think a lot of things, even if we didn't touch on it, we do touch on it when we talk about training and treating people with dignity and office and the mandatory requirement to intervene. I think some of that stuff will help with
Right.
policies that we might not have looked at. But we're making it clear that anything that happens, any police relationship with the public, with the civilians, should be handled in a certain way. So that would be either in a jail cell or in the street. So the recommendations are not limited to just what happens in the street. That's just, we're trying to change the cultural of policing from the, inside out. So we will hit on some things of how we expect prisoners to be treated, how we expect them to run their operation. So certain things will be covered even if we don't specifically say so.
Well, let me ask this question, and I agree with you, Janice, but what about we just take independently, after this meeting, we take some time to review these on our own. If we feel that they merit some comment to be added to the group of policies that we have so far and could fit into that format that we already have, that we each write down what we think the points are, and maybe we can communicate that to each other before this final document is created. We could do that by email or even talking to each other on the phone.
Well, when is the final document supposed to be complete? Karen or
Karen?
Janice?
If you
Um,
recall, we had been talking about getting a final document to the council by early February. But before we can do that, the document needs to be, the draft needs to be written up, and the draft needs to be put out for public comment for maybe a couple of weeks. Doesn't,
Oh, okay.
governor's guidance document doesn't specify, but a period of time, but it does say that the draft recommendations must be put out for public comment before they are then subsequently finalized and given to the council and the mayor. So, backing up from February, we're really up against a deadline here.
Okay, so we're really looking at like early January, like the first week of January,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that you would want to put those out to the public.
Yeah, because the council, yeah.
Okay.
So once again, I would recommend that we confirm that we're going to report on the 8 policies that we've covered in detail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Does everybody feel that makes sense?
Yes. I do.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let me just interrupt to say that I am about to send you what I've typed up as unbiased policing recommendations on the exciting form in Word that I am now going to email everybody.
okay.
Are we going to be able to add to it or edit
Sure,
it?
it's in Word.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty tech unsavvy.
It's just a draft, we wanted to get a draft, so
Yeah.
I did it.
Thank
Patrick, do you have any comments? Because
No, I agree that we, at least for now, we focus on what we've already discussed. And if in the interim, we can review these policies and maybe use one of the Monday sessions we had planned as an entire group. Maybe we could meet again on Monday during one of those 12:30 to 1:30 slots that were just canceled if we wanted to discuss the 3 or 4 policies we haven't had a chance to go over. Maybe
Well,
like next Monday.
yeah, tomorrow's too soon.
Correct, but maybe the following Monday, because I think we had canceled the entire group meeting that we had for whatever date that is, like the 28th. And maybe
Yeah,
we
we
could use
did.
that as a working lunch and go over these 3 policies we haven't touched on yet. We could all review them on our own time during this holiday period and have
We
any
could do that.
suggestions we might have, if that works for people.
Yeah, right. And when we can also try to get Karen's template documents and see if we want to add stuff to it or edit it.
Sure,
Yeah, we're going to have to finalize it then,
correct.
within a week or so.
Oh, great.
You'll have to add stuff to it because I only have a couple of policies. So you're definitely going to have to fill it in.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. We'll work on that. Janice, do you have any thoughts about that? Are we okay with that?
So we're going to meet on the 28th at 12:30? And at that time, we're going to go over the 3 policies that we have not had a chance to look at.
Well, and not only that, but we should really be prepared to finalize all the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Well,
makes
yeah.
sense to me.
It just means that we have to try to go through make sure that we put whatever we need into that template for
Right.
these different policies, which is going to be a lot of work.
Oh, 28th
I'm-
at 12:30? You wanna?
Yeah, it could be 12. I'm just trying to think of what time we normally meet. That just got canceled. We had all kind of, I think,
I
made
think
ourselves available.
that was a 7 o'clock meeting, I think.
Would
I
that
think
be
that
better
was-
than if people want at night? Well, I can do that, whatever's easiest for the group.
Yeah, that works for me too.
No,
Yes.
7 o'clock. The 7 o'clock was on the 21st. The 12
Oh,
o'clock was
okay.
on the 28th.
Either way, I can.
I'm not
Can-
available on the 28th at noon. I already have a meeting that day, so the PM works better for me.
If the PM works,
So-
that's fine with me.
That's fine.
Yeah, let's make it the PM meeting on the 28th.
Okay.
Gives us more time.
Okay.
Yeah. So, one thing you should do is try to look at, what I did with this unbiased policing policy and, to give you an idea of, what we might do with some of the way we can write up some of the other policies that we haven't written, or amend it in some way.
Mhm.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it
Sounds good. Janice, did you want to get into the documents that you sent us any further this morning?
I'm just wondering if, those things seem like something we should include in as recommendations.
Yeah,
I don't-
I like it.
I don't know
like it.
if anybody had a chance. Everybody might not have had a chance. I did that like 3:30 this morning, 4 o'clock
my
this
gosh.
morning.
I noticed that, Janice.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. But I mean, that's when I was looking at these policies. I put these down, but I was wondering if you guys think they're worth putting into our recommendations. I do. That's why I put it there, but I wanted to see what you thought.
I believe that they should go into our overall general committee recommendation. I think that they're of that much value.
Well, the general committees are probably are pretty much done from what I can see. I think community engagement is done. These transparency and accountability, we're waiting for them. Qualifications and recruitment are done. Training and equipment. I mean, I think our recommendations are going to have an overlap with each one of these committees. So, I mean, it can go on our report if you are okay with them.
I don't have a problem with it.
I
Yeah.
just think we should talk a little bit about no-knock warrants. We really haven't talked about that.
Okay. Do you, I didn't see anything in the policies about that.
No.
Did you see
No.
anything?
No.
Okay. So I just said there should be a ban on it. And I said that because I believe it. Plus, I was talking with another group, and they were saying that it was a good idea to put a ban on them. Patrick's been kind of quiet. Patrick, what you think?
Whatever the group wants, I can't weigh in really on.
Okay.
Well,
recommendations.
why don't you tell the group why a no-knock warrant might be applied for?
Well, they'll use them in cases where they believe things can be immediately destroyed that are the subject of the warrant. A lot of times it was used in drug cases where drugs could be flushed if you knocked and gave people
Right.
an opportunity or alerted them
Mhm.
to your presence.
Right.
Whether or not that outweighs the public safety value of the citizens' lives versus the contraband that you're attempting to recover.
Right.
And that's usually it's applied to through a judge. So a judge is the one who signs off on it.
Mhm.
He can not allow a no-knock. He can not allow the warrant to be sealed. And that's up to the individual judge. So
Right.
they have been used in the past, but I don't know what the public feels with respect to what's now happened with the Breonna Taylor and in other instances that haven't been reported as much, where there have been horrific consequences because of the no-knock policy, especially when it's authorized and effectuated by people who are in plain clothes and not in uniform,
Right.
which makes it difficult for people to identify that you're police.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for explaining that to me, Patrick. Is there maybe a way that a no-knock warrant can be used only if they know there's no children or someone in the house? Like, can they know the situation before they do it?
Usually
Because
you don't have that much specific knowledge because you usually haven't set up a complete surveillance on the residents as to immediate 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 10 minutes before you're executing that warrant, because
okay.
you might have done surveillance to verify that what you believed was criminal activity was occurring, that there were
Right.
a number of people coming in with packages or
Mhm.
whatever was happening that led you to believe that some type of nefarious activity was occurring there. But
Mhm.
you can never, with 100% certainty, know who is actually inside at the time you execute it.
Yeah.
And that's where
Gotcha.
issues can happen.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to say that I can imagine circumstances in which you might want to authorize a no-knock warrant, and not for drugs, but
Correct.
let's suppose that there was probable cause to believe that somebody was uh, building explosives or something like that,
Mhm.
and we're heavily armed with say automatic weapons. We might want to give the police officers authority to break the door down and go in there.
Mhm.
So we might want to say that no knock, applications for no knock warrants should be limited to circumstance to like
Mhm.
Exigent circumstance type.
exigent circumstances, or
I
like
like
exigent
that.
circumstances you could probably do without a warrant, but like where there's a public safety
Or a high risk of,
something like that.
I
as
like that.
opposed to a straight narcotics, no
I
doubt.
like that. Yeah, I like that. That
Uh,
makes would make the community feel better. I mean, I think.
And
Also, you might get
then,
less
then,
resistance from the police department if they had, because they're going to be thinking about, what
Their
if
officer
they have to
safety,
knock,
correct.
the officers have to knock when this guy has a machine gun,
And as soon as they announce themselves, then something happens, correct.
and there should be some language there to be absolutely certain when the warrant is applied that the address is absolutely correct.
Mhm.
Look, as a practical matter, it's a judge who's going to sign off on these warrants. So we're not talking about like going into a place without a warrant where there are exigent circumstances, but a judge is going to rely on, I mean, we're talking about, I guess, changing the actions of a judge potentially.
Well, no, it's saying the cops shouldn't apply for one unless there's a public emergency or a high risk situation or something like that. So eliminating, seeking the police officers applying for a warrant to a judge unless there are those circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that ban on no knock warrant deserves to have that little extra detail there, unless there is, those circumstances where it could be very deadly or something.
Yeah, and the issue that once again happened with Breonna Taylor was based on the fact that they had the wrong address.
So did anything else stand out to you, anybody on this second list? Because we talked about the one that I gave on Wednesday. I don't know, did anything else on this one? I know, one of the ones that I wasn't quite sure were, I didn't know if we should include, where is it? I can't see it now. Oh, okay, the one it says right here, this is about the whistleblower. Officers who report misconduct should be shielded from harassment and retaliation through policy and law. I mean, would that be us to decide what that policy should be? Or should we make a recommendation on what that policy should be? Or should we just leave it up to the people who make the decisions to decide what that policy should be?
Well, I think that that also kind of fits into the complaint. Well, this is actually how they use the personnel complaint policy now, that if an officer has a complaint about it, and then if an officer or civil employee has a complaint about another uh, uh, officer or civilian employee, that their issue gets managed in the same way that a general complaint gets managed.
I don't know about a whistleblower.
But that would be and a whistleblower would be someone who's internal to the department. So if you're referring to a whistleblower, we're thinking about another officer or a civilian employee of the department, right?
I was thinking more
Yes.
like an officer who reported, misconduct with another officer, I don't know if that's the same as a complaint form. I don't know. What do you
Yeah, it
think?
would be. It would be that it should be handled in exactly the same way. So if someone's looking to whistleblow about an activity or a process or procedure or another employee, it has to be some formal way that that's taken in.
Because I thought your complaint process that you have put together was for civilians who had complaints on police officers or police policies.
You're absolutely right. It is, but that same process should be applied to in the same way. And as it exists now in the current personnel complaint policy, that's how it is managed. It's managed in that same way now. So if I'm an
But
officer
there
and I want to
should be
complain about,
something in there.
yeah, if I'm an officer and I want to complain about another officer's activity, I have to go through that same process now, which I have to speak to a supervisor and give that supervisor my complaint. That complaint then goes to the chief of police.
But it talks about the protection that they need. That officers who
Yes.
do that usually are harassed. Sometimes they lose their job. They go through all kinds of things. It's a little different, they want to still have their job, as opposed to a civilian complaining about something. They're not going to lose their job. I mean,
Right.
but a police officer, and we've seen it happen, they report misconduct, or they want to report misconduct and they don't because of fear of harassment and retaliation. So I think it's a little different than, they're fearful of losing their job.
And I agree that needs to be included. It's not in the current personnel complaint policy. I agree 100% that should be there. I'm just trying to equate that there is a policy now, according to the police department, that's how that is handled. It is not adequate, as you're saying, and that needs to be taken into consideration and should be in the policy, but it's not there now. I agree with you, Janice. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay.
I'm just saying that the documentation or the process needs to be the same, not that those specific points, specifically about safeguarding the whistleblower, is not there.
Okay, so should we? Okay, all right.
Yeah, but we could add, a clause in there that says any officer who, reports another officer for incidents of bias or whatever, shall be protected, by whatever confidentiality, however you want to say it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
And,
think there was
and,
something good in the thing that Janice sent this
yeah, and
morning.
you're absolutely right. And I think that we should point to that document that Janice sent to fortify or support that,
Yes.
that process. Yeah.
Okay.
all right, well, I'm gonna put these things on the form that Karen, you just sent it out, right?
I think Richard sent it and
Oh,
Karen. Maybe.
no,
I
think
haven't sent it yet.
Oh,
I
you
have
haven't
not
sent that?
sent it yet, no.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
So
so
just one quick question. So we're not going to wait for Karen to complete her document, or we're going to wait so that we merge our points into her document, or are we going to try to have the two separate documents and then merge them together? Which way we're proceeding through this so that we're clear what we're going to have at the end of the day, at least at the end of the 28th conversation, we're coming up with one document, and that document is based on Karen's document to us or something else.
I think we should wait for Karen's and then, just expand upon that.
My
think-
document is going to be in the format that you saw, which is the format that all the committees are using. And it's really, I only had started to work on it. It only has 1 or 2 policies on it, which need to be reviewed and need to be added to. So I'm just going to send you the very beginnings of a document, but it would be up to this subcommittee to finish up the document as all the other subcommittees have done.
Okay, so
I have
on
not written up the recommendations for any other subcommittee. They've done that on their own.
okay, so on the 28th, we would have filled in that document, and we're reviewing all of the information that we put into that document to then certify that as being our final document. Is that the case? That's what I believe we're doing, correct?
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
that
Yeah.
Yeah.
sounds like a laudable goal.
Good.
Um,
Yeah, so I think we would proceed in that way.
We just
Okay.
have to keep in mind, I mean, the next, week or so is gonna be kind of busy for everyone.
Yeah, so we'll put this in our Christmas stockings.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, look, it could be a goal, and if we need like one other meeting after that, absolutely needed, then we always could.
Yes, I agree.
But if we're shooting for like early January.
Yes. Janice, is there anything else you feel we should cover, or
No,
wanna-
I'm good.
Merlene, is there anything you feel we should cover or haven't covered?
No, I'm good.
Richard, we have a sync point?
Yeah, I think we're in sync as to what we want to do.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
And
I just
Patrick,
looked outside my window and it's snowing.
don't say
Mhm.
that. Those are bad words. Don't say that snow's a bad word. That's a bad word.
I
It's,
concur, Bernie, I concur.
yeah, look outside.
It's snowing.
Okay. Karen, is there anything else that you feel we should be aware of, or do you think we're proceeding in the right direction right now?
Yeah, I guess so.
Good. So with that said, ask you to schedule a meeting for us on the 28th at 7 o'clock. Was that everyone?
Mm-hmm.
7
Mhm,
works.
That's good.
Good, good. And we'll look at everything that we have, and Karen will get that out to us.
Wait a
Yes.
minute. The 28th, I have a big meeting. It's an 8 o'clock meeting, NAACP. I could
We could do the 29th
Or
if that's okay.
is the, I don't want to inconvenience everyone. Is the
I,
20?
I can do the 29th also.
Or can we do early on the 28th?
The date, the 28th is what, the 28th is a Monday, right?
Yes.
Correct.
As long as I'm able to get to my next meeting by 8, it's virtual. So I mean, long as I can switch over and be on my, you know what? I'm not even sure if it's 8 or 7 now. I gotta check.
Or,
Wow.
or do we want to meet on the 27th, which is next Sunday?
Eh,
Um,
yeah, I'd rather do Monday or Tuesday than
Yeah.
as a,
Sunday.
so you're saying we're not meeting next Sunday?
Well,
Not if we're meeting on the Monday.
I'm not sure.
Okay, you know what, guys? I gotta check my schedule. I know I have a meeting on Monday and thinking, I don't know if it's 7 or 8. So,
So we're saying that the Tuesday is not good either, the 29th.
it's good for me in the evening.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine with, unless, could we do Monday afternoon? Go back to that, or are we is that out?
I think that was difficult for Marlene also.
Oh, okay.
It is.
How does
I can do
Tuesday,
Tuesday. If Tuesday is best, then we can schedule it now. I can do Tuesday.
Tuesday evening?
Yes.
Tuesday evening
Richard,
works for me.
Richard, is Tuesday evening good for you?
I think we lost him.
Patrick, is
I
Tuesday
can make
evening good for
Tuesday
you?
work. I can make Tuesday evening work.
Okay. Richard, are you still there with us?
He's here.
So Tuesday at what time? 6, 7? What?
Tuesday at 7?
Tuesday at 7 works for me.
Yes.
That's fine.
It works for me also.
All right, so let Karen know that Tuesday at 7.
I got it. I'll schedule it.
Thank you.
It doesn't work for you, Karen.
I'll make it work. It's fine.
All right.
All right, so then we don't need to meet next Sunday, right?
No.
Yeah, but
No.
let me just suggest that if you have something that you want to, if we get something from Karen, maybe we can try to send around some, what we're going to do with that before the meeting. It's really going to be difficult to look at it while we're meeting, unless we
Right.
have it in advance.
Right. No, we'll definitely look at it beforehand.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, guys. So we'll
Working
see
on
Tuesday-
you.
stuff, is
Tuesday
what I
at
mean.
7. Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Tuesday at 7.
Okay,
Sounds
guys.
good.
Okay.
Good night. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of
Everybody
your
have a
weekend.
happy holiday.
Same
Thank
to you.
you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Take care.